This is the Café con Podcast.
Happy Christmas, you filthy animals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the preview. Wait.
This is the Café con Podcast.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidades. I am Isaac.
And I'm George.
Hey, everybody. As always, we love you. We wish you nothing but blessings. Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. Thank you for being the caffeine cafecito addicts that you are. We love you. I'm not drinking cafecito right now, but I was drinking my mama's Cuban coffee earlier. 10 out of 10. If we're going to do a little coffee rating, mama's Cuban coffee, 10 out of 10. 10,000 out of 10,000. I don't know what she puts in that thing. She uses pilon. Anybody that wants a little tutorial on it, let us know. It's not a secret. I'll let you know. She's shown a lot of people, and they've all done it the same way, and it doesn't taste the same. I don't know what she puts in there. There's some fairy dust. There's something in there. There's some Cuban fairy dust or something happening in there.
I'm a advocate for it.
Bro?
I've witnessed it.
He's everybody who's been graced by the cafecito of Mama Rossi has been left better for it. It's amazing. He's amazing. All right, guys. So today, this is a fun intro. We got a little special a special guest today. We got Jason Silva. He has a brand new scripted podcast out called Macaw right now with Drew Roush, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. They created this podcast together. Jason is a director, writer, and a producer out here in Los Angeles. Well, right now I'm in La Florida, but in La Florida, right here, go Fins, baby, go Fins. But he is a friend that I met a few years ago, and he and his beautiful wife, they are a power couple. Jason is also an author. Actually, he when we talked to him, I believe that this was a few months ago, so it's been a couple months back. He had just finished his last book in his Edgar Trunk series. So he has a fiction series out there called Edgar Trunk, which is really great. It's like a TYA fiction series. He's an incredible writer. He's a great friend. He's a great father, great husband. And he, like I said, Macaw right now is available on all streaming platforms. We'll put the link in the bio as well.
Can you spell that for them, just so they don't get it
twisted? Macaw. Macaw. And it's really, I don't want to give too much away, but it takes place on a cruise ship. That's all that I will say. And I've heard the first few episodes, and it is delightful. It has Lance Reddick, R.I.P., who if you saw who Lance Reddick was, you'd know who he was, George Michael. But he's a really good actor as well. But Jason was gracious enough just to come on and open up all about his experiences. You know how we do it, people. It's literally just about the wisdom that people provide for us, that they're just so honest and open with. And he talked to us about his ups, his downs, just pretty much everything that entails being where he is as this writer, director, author, producer. So anybody who's, again, going through a crossroads in their life and is thinking about something to do, and you're wanting to make that next big move, this will be something that really helps you, because you could just get the insight into somebody that has gone through all of that kind of stuff. So it was really, really insightful. That's what I remember from the episode, right? What do you remember?
I mean, side note, anytime I've been on a cruise ship, I did not have fun. So go listen to that. I mean, Isaac can vouch for me. We've been on a cruise ship together. One that changed my life.
Vouch. Yep, that's true. I vouch.
Yep. The episode felt a long time ago. I'm not gonna lie. We've done a lot since then. But I remember just positive energy, perspective. That's probably one of the revolving themes we have on this podcast. But I'm not gonna give too much away. You guys got to listen to it. It was a great time. I've never met a bad Jason, to be honest, either. So there you go.
Never met a bad Jason. Never met a bad cruise. Let's go. All right, y'all. Sit back, listen, and enjoy. And of course, if you forget,
This is the Cafe con Podcast.
you're the mean one, Mr. Grinch. Hey guys, let's go. Let's go.
Last call for boarding of the Macaw.
I don't really drink. Don't take vacations, actually. And this is my first cruise.
I hope it's a memorable experience.
I'm sure it can be.
Hey, whoa, new friend. I was just gonna ask you to hit the tables with me. Gamble a bit. What do you say?
It's not my thing, gambling.
2. Crap. 69,000 on Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes wins.
Holy shit, you did it!
Again, everything on Snake Eyes.
I think this cruise is gonna be good for you in more ways than one.
If you haven't signed up to hear Mr. Macaw in our Seashell Auditorium, do that immediately if you're a fan.
This cruise that you're on, it's a motivational cruise. I'm gonna get deep as fuck on you. Actually, enjoy your life. That's a novel concept, right?
I'm not comfortable like this.
Good. Let's get you different. Amundsen, where you at?
I'm not an adventurer.
You're a gambling superhero on a floating amusement park hurtling towards the Bermuda Triangle in a tropical storm. And you're my date, adventurer.
Your life changed the moment you stepped foot aboard the Macaw.
What's going on? What's happening? Why are you laughing?
It's you, Ron! You're on some high or something!
If it sounds true and it feels real, does it really matter?
Bermuda, here I come.
All this stuff, dude.
We're novices.
We're still learning how to do all this stuff.
All good.
The man,
How you doing,
Yes.
Jason?
Hey, I'm good, fellas.
Yeah.
Jason.
Jason.
Oh, Jason. It's so nice to see your face, Jason.
Oh, dude, same. Yeah.
It is
Been too long.
It's been way too long, my friend. Way too long. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I can't complain.
How is the wife? How's the baby?
All good. Baby's going to daycare finally.
Wow.
And hand delivering every illness known to the area.
Those beautiful little cesspools
should.
of germs.
As they
Yeah. Been sick for 5 months. No, I'm finally coming out of it. Hopefully.
Oh my God. Well, welcome to Café con Podcast. Cheers. I have a little cold brew going right now. Salud y felicidades.
got a little
Bendiciones.
hot brew.
Mm.
It's gonna be a good
very
one
nice.
because we haven't recorded one in a little while.
Yeah, it's been a minute since we recorded.
I go.
All
Went
right,
on
cool.
hiatus after one episode.
Yeah, exactly. We had to take a break. It was we figured out, man, this is
Too
a
much.
lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Let's take a quick break, really quick.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude. Talk.
I feel like I
hold on.
should make my coffee while we're on this.
If you want, you can go ahead and start it.
Let me heat it back up.
Yeah, go make your coffee. Go heat it back up.
This would,
Did I show you my setup?
No. Oh, you're in your kitchen,
nah,
dude. I saw
whoa.
that. We saw that the last time that. No, I don't know if I saw that one. It's been a minute since I've been to your place. The last
Yeah, I
time
don't
we
think we
went.
had it.
Last time we went there was when we had that glorious cocktail, that cocktail hour that you were making us. Dude, so George, if you see behind Jason right now, there's that hallway. Show him that hallway. We're right over your shoulder. You see how that
Oh.
hallway is right there? Dude, their house is an unbelievable feat of architecture. You'll explain it better than I would, Jason. Where do you guys live? Like, what is it?
Well, we live in the largest artist colony in the world, which is in Los Angeles, and most people don't know, called the Brewery Artist Lofts. But before it was a brewery, like go back 125 years, you had Edison Electric Company, and that's the building that we live in, and we have the third floor. So imagine a power plant in 1902, and that's where we live.
He's
Is that-
underselling it.
Where in
by
LA?
so,
Where in LA?
so
Where in
hard.
LA is it?
East LA, Lincoln Heights.
Okay.
He's underselling it. It's also a
Dodger
brewery,
Stadium.
isn't it? A brewery?
It was at one point. Like the campus was owned by a brewery, Pabst Blue Ribbon, but this building I don't believe was part of that.
Good old PBR, American.
I'm a little familiar with LA since the times I visit Isaac. So is that like near the Griffith?
Not
That's East
really.
LA, right? Is that East
They're
LA?
closer. It's closer to Griffith than we are, but it's not right next to Griffith.
Is it like north or south of it?
East.
East of it.
It's
More
East
east?
LA.
Oh,
Like if you
yeah.
go
So
to
it's more
downtown.
east.
Yeah. That's like Hollywood. What you're talking about.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
close
But,
to downtown.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a view of downtown. It's like a mile away.
There's
As the crow flies.
the skyline. So I was just doing a deep dive into your IG. I was doing a deep
Did you
dive
find
into
some
your
stuff?
IG. Well, I saw a picture of where there was one with the caption that said, "When you're stuck in between the moon and downtown LA," or something like that. And I was cracking up because it reminded me of the old IG post that I would have too, where I put the filters all around, and it would just be like a picture of Bob Marley. And it'd say, all you got to do is just love and chill. Like those old IG posts. But that skyline that they have there, they have this little balcony that is unbelievable, dude. It's right next to these wonderful train tracks also. But just the view that you guys have, you could see Dodger Stadium from where you guys are. And it is so beautiful.
Well, the other end of our apartment is 20-foot tall windows with an unobstructed view of downtown, and you see Dodger Stadium to one side, and because we're east of downtown, the sun sets over downtown, so we get like that beautiful sunset every night. And that particular end of the apartment, that's where we have our lounge, our bar, TV room, and all that, so it's like prime for entertaining.
It's prime
Sunsets
for
just hit different on
entertaining.
the West Coast.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm from Miami, so we don't really get sunsets like that. I mean, we get beautiful
get
sunsets.
sunrise.
Don't get me wrong.
I got a hot take. I'm about to spit a hot take. I think the sunsets in Florida, in my personal opinion, are more beautiful than out here. Personally, that's my hot take. And
I haven't experienced them really.
why
they are.
But the reason why I say that is because it depends on what your preference is. The sunsets out here are gorgeous. It's when the sun goes down, you get that gold hour. That golden hour out
That's
here
true, actually.
is something that doesn't happen in Florida. The Florida sunsets are more littered with colors. So the colors are a lot different. Whereas out here, you experience almost the veracity of the sun.
Yeah,
as it's
feels
coming
more colossal.
down.
Feels more colossal, the sunsets in the West Coast.
Definitely.
I would say you definitely get a lot of different types of cotton candy skies out here, or a lot of oranges. It's pretty dope.
As you can see, this is what we do on this podcast. We talk
Just
about a lot
Tangent City.
All about
random,
sunset.
random
Just
stuff.
Tangent
We're just
City.
talking about
Sunsets and coffee.
sunsets. So I wanted to go back really quick before I even talk about how you and I met, Jason, and all that stuff. You were talking about entertaining. George, I got to tell you something about Jason. So Jason he's an author, he's a screenwriter, he's a director. He is all these beautiful, an amalgamation of a wonderful collective artist. Now, what I'm going to say is he is also the best cocktail maker that I have ever met in my entire life. Bro.
Wow.
I
High praise.
100%. And you can ask Sky. One day, they invited us over. Him and his wife invited us over, and we went over there. And he was like, "Yeah, I'll make you we'll go on a cocktail journey." And I remember tasting the first one. I was like, "Good God, there's no alcohol in this. This tastes amazing." Second one, man, there's no alcohol in this. After the third one, when we left, I just remember thinking to myself, there was definitely alcohol in those, but you could not taste it. It was amazing. It was unbelievable, dude. We got to do another one of those nights. That was such a great time.
It was, yeah. Hey, anytime.
Self-taught, or
Sincerely.
you took classes for that?
I just
Cookbook,
came across a cocktail I liked, asked the bartender to teach me how to make it, and then just made the shit out of that at home. And then I got bored eventually and just slowly branched out. But yeah, I definitely have a handful that I make that I like. But if you came to me and you were like, I'd really like this cocktail, I wouldn't necessarily be able to make it for you. I'm not a bartender, but you know, I don't know. I'm an enthusiast, so like I like to find like rare ingredients and mix it up a little bit. But yeah, with cocktails, like it's pretty basic actually. Like every cocktail you can imagine and drink anywhere you go is based on like about a handful of like classic cocktail recipes. They're just varying up the ingredients. Like they'll change the spirit, or like whatever the sweet component is, they'll change up what the sweet component is. So it's like you've got three main areas where you can like go wild, do variations, and every time you do, it's like a brand new cocktail. But it's really all stemming from the same original idea. I mean, art storytelling is the same way. Stories are very, very similar. Now.
That was a good transition. Nice transition.
Before we transition though, do you have your own custom kind of cocktail that you call your own?
No, I don't have like this is the Jason.
This is the Silva. This is the Silva.
We're definitely like always going through phases.
Okay.
But usually it's like an old fashioned or Manhattan variation.
Nice.
And we really like dirty martinis as well. So
nice.
What phase are you in right now?
Right now, I've been making this drink called the Seaway. And it's really good. It's very easy. So 3 dashes of orange bitters, like 1/4 ounce of orange curacao, 2 ounces of reposado. You stir all that like with a big chunk of ice, and then you take 1/4. I do a 1/2 ounce of like a really peaty scotch, and I float it on top.
Oh my God!
So good. Yeah,
it's reposado with scotch.
Yeah.
Dude, I have never had a drink like that before.
I think I'm gonna have to make a flight over there. I'm a tequila guy, so.
Oh yeah. I love tequila. I love mezcal. It's kind of like a tequila old fashioned with like a scotch float. Basically.
I was gonna say it sounded like one.
That sounds beautiful.
It does.
But there you go. See, it's basically an old fashioned, but you change up some of the ingredients. It's a new thing
Make
now.
it your own.
Yeah.
What was it called again? A Seaway?
Seaway.
Seaway.
Okay. Yeah.
Sí, güey.
Yes.
¿Quiere un trago? Sí, güey. Claro, güey. Sí, güey.
I sounded so non-Hispanic when I was
I know, you sounded
Seaway,
so...
like like you're in the way on the sea.
Try not to oversell the G, you know?
Yeah, there we go.
Dude, so this, just a little background so you guys can kind of connect the way that these dots are all aligning. George Michael is one of my boys from Miami that I've known since I was 4 years old. He's a music producer. He's a DJ down there. And this whole idea, just podcast in general, stemmed from the fact that we were talking one day and we both agreed that we didn't spend as much intentional time just talking to each other as much as we would like to. So we said, why not just start a podcast? And even if nobody listens to it, we just talk to each other for 1 hour a week. We put our phones down. Let's do it. And then we branched out into inviting people that we are curious about, that we respect, that we love. You obviously fall under all those categories. But that's the reason why we wanted to just kind of bring people in. And inevitably, the conversations always kind of tend to go towards, whatever it goes. But more often than not, it's an artist's experience and how it has been in their life and things like that. And then George Michael, Jason and I met through a common connection. My God, probably 6 years ago. It's been a minute.
Yes.
And Jason is a director. We got linked up because he's a director. I'm an actor. This common connection thought that maybe, we could possibly benefit from each other's relationship. And that's how it started. But then it kind of butted into something that was, for me at least, much deeper than that. Jason, he's an extraordinary guy. He, when you were just talking about earlier, how you just had this enthusiasm for finding cocktails and you just kind of figured out how to make it on your own. I think that's how it applies to a lot in your life, right? The way that you became a writer, the way that you became a director and things like that. I know that when we first met, you had already had various things out, and that's something that's kind of where I wanted to start was, how did you find your way into directing? Or screenwriting, whatever, into the art ventures in your life?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I knew since I was little that I was a storyteller, that I like to consume stories. I read all the time. I was a voracious reader, but I found the books that were my favorite. I mean, we're talking like second, third grade, taking it way back to youth there. I liked the choose your own adventure. And the reason why is I wanted to have a hand in the stories that I was consuming, the journey that I was going on. So I think it just naturally progressed into, well, what's better than choosing my own adventure? It's just writing it from scratch. So I started writing. I loved fantasy at the time, reading a lot of fantasy, writing a bunch of stories. They were very fantastical. I remember in seventh grade, I was writing my first book, seventh grade.
Wow.
And it was like 70 pages already, the draft. And we had English class. So I would go to print my draft, but the school I went to and the era that it was, like, we didn't have like the laser jet printer that was quiet and just like would spit out 70 pages like it was nothing. It was like that. Yeah.
The dial-up of printers.
Basically, yeah. So like I remember I started printing my story in the morning because I was like the first class, and it pretty much like printed through like the next 3 classes. So every class after mine that had to go in there was sitting there listening to my story being printed. And yeah, I love writing and telling stories. And I mean, by the time I got to college, like I'd written 3 books. I mean, 3 books that I was like serious about that I was submitting, not like what I wrote in 7th grade. Yeah, I just loved it. Love writing. When I got to college, so you were mentioning earlier, like self-taught, the same thing kind of happened with writing. I just love to do it. So I did it. And I read a lot. That was my best education. But I was taking like marketing classes in college because it just seemed sensible. Like I wasn't going to tell my family I'm an English major. Like they wouldn't understand. Be like, why are you paying for school to read and write? Like you can do that without school.
You can do that on the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I was like taking marketing classes, but you have electives. So I was doing like creative writing workshops for my electives. And I was doing the writing anyway. I didn't need the class to inspire me to write, but I did want to like get feedback from a person in a position of authority. So I started doing the writing workshops. Ended up getting like, as a sophomore, I was doing the grad level creative writing workshops. It was part of their master's program. I'd gotten like approval to do that. Wow. So I just kept ratcheting it up. I'm like, I want to be around the best writers that I can and learn and grow and get the feedback from them. Because it's not like they're teaching you technique necessarily. It's more so just like, like when you do a table read of something you've written, it's like, or, you share your music around. It's like people give you feedback and then it's up to you to decide what to do with it. But they're not saying, hey, you should try this. This is hot. This is better. So I just kind of went through that with writing. I changed my major eventually. But on the side, I actually took a semester off and I wrote like an entire novel, and I was writing all these short stories, and I almost didn't go back to college because I'm like, I'm already doing what I want to do. Going to college, I'm already working 2 jobs. Like if I have to now go to college, that's another 40 hours a week. When am I going to have time to write? But I did, and I'm glad. But while I was in that stage of college, I just had this big idea that was inspired by this dream. I literally had a dream where, and maybe you've had these too, like I fell asleep and it was like a movie. Like it literally was like I was just watching a movie. It was almost like I was watching a movie with a VR headset on. That's what it felt like. And I'd wake up, go to the bathroom, and come back. I'd like pick up where I left off, like it was really a movie. Wow. But the story, I loved it so much. I was like, I got to write this. This is my next book. I tried to write it like 4 times. I got to like 50 pages and threw it in the trash, basically, deleted it, started over. It just wasn't working for me. I realized I'm trying to adapt this fictional movie in my mind into a book. And it doesn't want to be a book. It wants to be a movie. So I decided, let me make this a movie, but I'd never done it. So what did I do? I went to the store. I looked at like what were the screenplays that were available. Stephen Gaghan, who wrote Traffic, he's from Louisville, Kentucky, my hometown. So I'm like, I like that movie. So I got the screenplay, read half of it, and I was like, okay, formatting wise, and like kind of how like the story was told in the format of a screenplay. I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. So then I wrote my first screenplay, and now I was like into screenwriting. So eventually moved out to LA, and I was pretty convinced. I'm like, I'm going to write a novel, and then I'm going to write a screenplay, and then I'll do a novel, then I'll do a screenplay. Like that was going to be my creative future. And hopefully I'd publish some of those books and I'd get some of those screenplays made. But I was just doing that for like, you're in LA, and it's like, okay, there's a thing you want to do, which is why you came out here. And whether you travel to do what you want to do or not, doesn't really matter. It's like, if you're focused on what you want to do, you're like, okay, I'm focused on what I want to do, but you still got to earn a living. So I ended up getting a job in entertainment. I basically got like any job I could get that was in entertainment, and started working at a television network. But it was the corporate side. It was entertainment, but it wasn't writing. I wasn't even thinking about directing. But through that, I sort of like got my hands on producing a little bit as part of my job. So I was like writing and producing, and it just was always two separate worlds for me. So it was like the creative world, which is when I'm doing my writing, and then like the work world where I'm like kind of producing, being a manager, not a talent manager, but like I'm managing a creative process. So inadvertently, I was teaching myself how to produce while continuing to like keep my creative axe sharp, so to speak. And it wasn't until like 10 years into all this that my now wife, Annette, who I had met, she was a producer only, not a writer, not a director, none of that. She loved one of my short stories she'd read, and she's like, this is my next short film. And I was like, okay. Well, by now, like I'd been around enough. I'd hired directors. I'd managed directors through the process, and they were like directing my writing. And some of them were awesome and some were okay, but like I just felt like I have such a vision for what I'm writing. I'm translating it to them to then translate through their own lenses to make something. And I feel like, why do I have this middleman in my own creative vision? So I told Annette, I'm like, you can make this short, and she wanted me to adapt it. I'm like, I'll adapt it and you can make it, but I'm going to direct it. And she's like, no, I think you should direct it. So I came back to her like a week later, and I'm like, it's better than one short film? 5 short films. I'm like, we're going to make 5 short films in the next 6 months. Wow. And so one of them, we raised money, did like the Kickstarter thing. And one of them we just paid for. And then the other 3, we made it for no money. I'm like, wait, we don't need money to make, you need resources, don't get me wrong. But I'm like, if the goal is like start making movies, then let's just start making them. Did I know how to do it? Yes, a little bit by exposure, but I hadn't directly directed before. And so I knew, like, I'm going to do the first film. I'm going to love it or I'm going to hate it. And if I hate it, then I tried. But I loved it. And just like I guess to finish the arc of it, like 3 years later, I was leaving my day job that I considered work, and I was able to make a living as a director. After a decade of trying to make a living as a writer, making almost no money as a writer, suddenly as a director, now I can that's my full-time job. But, there's like other layers to that, which is like, okay, now I'm directing, I'm getting paid to direct, but is it the stuff I want to direct? Is it the stuff I feel is me, right, represents me? Is, am I doing my projects or am I doing directing for other people that are just for hire? So there's always tiers that you got to unlock to move into the next one.
Oh yeah.
But that's like, I'd say that's like the overarching story about how I got out here and got into directing. And I will say, I love it. I definitely found a way to utilize all of my creative self and be fulfilled, and not just like a part of my creativity.
So I find ourselves sometimes when Isaac brings a guest on or vice versa, as him being more familiar with you, he'll ask the first question and then I try to unpack it all.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to reel it back into where you were saying when you started writing those 2 or 3 novels you wrote. Was it a specific genre or theme, or were you kind of just any type of story you were willing to tell? It was like when you first started writing those 2 or 3 books?
I think when it was like when I really started like being serious about writing, middle school, going into high school, I tend to I think because I was reading a lot of fantasy, I really liked fantastical worlds. And so there'd be like a normal character that would be like yourself or someone you knew, but they were in extraordinary circumstances in a fantasy world and navigating that. So I felt like, how can I take me and what I know and my own limitations of my own world and go to a new place and still be able to like storytell in that journey in an authentic way? Because a lot of people say, and you've heard, like, write what you know. Well, I think that's true, but if you only write what you know, how are you ever going to expand your mind, and how are you ever going to expand your stories and who your stories might relate to? So I definitely was like pursuing like these new worlds and challenges, and it was very exploratory. When I got to college, and I'm sure this happens to a lot of people, started reading a ton of classic literature, Hemingway and Faulkner and Hunter S. Thompson. And so, of course, I started to find myself imitating them.
Classic literature, Hunter S. Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson, yeah, he
I
is
love
another
Hunter S.,
Louisvillian.
I love Hunter S. Thompson. That's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. If you don't know
Yeah.
that movie, bro.
I do. I've seen that.
Oh, dude, fire. All right,
Wow.
sorry.
Oh,
I didn't
yeah,
mean to
yeah,
cut you
yeah.
off.
He's
I know
wild.
you-
No, thanks for appreciating him.
I know you love. You have your little Hunter S. Corner in the crib too. So
Oh, yeah, I do.
I know you love your Hunter S. Thompson.
He was a wild dude, yeah. I got to see him in person
What?
before he died. So
I didn't know
and I
that.
didn't appreciate him at the time. Yeah, so he's from Louisville, and there's a poet, Kentucky poet, who would always like anything that was like a Hunter S. Thompson thing in Louisville, which was like the homeland, he would arrange it. So it was the 20th anniversary of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and he and like at the University of Louisville, they put on a night, and it was like Hunter was there, a bunch of like old school cats from his world, like Warren Zevon, who sang this song "Werewolves of London," Douglas Brinkley, who was like a journalist. Johnny Depp was there because they had filmed Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but it wasn't out yet, and a bunch of other people. And it just kind of had like little mini performances, recitals, whatever. And my grandmother, who was probably one of the only people on my mom's side of the family that shared a love of literature with me, she and I would like share books back and forth. No one else really was reading like we were. So she took me to see him, and I had friends who were into him, but I didn't really know much about him. And we were like in the third row, and I remember halfway through, my grandmother leans over to me, who was like, my grandmother was very proper and certainly liked to present in a certain way. And she just goes, "I think they're all high." And it started to get rowdy, and it was really funny. But later, I think when I moved away, I started to read more of Hunter Thompson's work, which a lot of it are like his letters. Like a lot of his books are just his letters that he'd written. And I loved how like over the top he was. But it's like his over the top didn't feel like he was being over the top. It just felt like he was larger than life, and it was him.
Yeah.
But like for me to write in that style would feel like me going over the top. So yeah, I tried to emulate that for a little while. And I mean, eventually though, you're always finding your voice, but I feel like, okay, I don't have to imitate other people now. I have enough confidence, and I've done enough exploring and self-introspection that I have a voice, I have something to say, I have a point of view, and I'm going to live in that.
I have a question. You were talking a little bit earlier about love, about the love of directing and then the layers of directing and things like that. Just recently, I think that I've been going through a little bit, and you and I have talked about this before too, Jason, but I've been going through a little bit of recalibration, I would say, in terms of trying to figure out, honestly, WTF am I doing? What in the world am I doing type of thing. You talked about 10 years as a writer, not really making much money, and then you get into directing and you're doing what you wanted to do, but then the new layers start to come into play, which is, am I directing my own stuff? Am I directing what other people want to do? And you love doing the short films and things like that. Have you ever fallen or has the love ever changed in your artistic process and your artistic journey? And how do you handle that recalibration, or has it remained steady the entire time?
Well, I think like you definitely have to stay open to the fact that those dreams that you pursued and or are pursuing can change. Like, you know, let's say I decided I want to be a novelist when when I was 8 years old. Well, certainly when I was 18 or 28 or older, I don't want to rely on something that my 8-year-old self came up with. I'm older, wiser. I know the world more and know myself more. I've lived more life. I've experienced more things. So I think like I used to kind of hold myself accountable to it because I see where you're coming from. You do make big life changes, especially when you move across the country. You move to where you maybe have a little family or some friends or maybe nobody, but it's not like your home base. You're in a new world, and you your whole family, everyone is like, you moved away. There's an expectation that they put on you too, like to make it, whatever that in quotation marks means. And so, yeah, you carry that pressure and you're like, all right, I'm here, I'm going to make it. And I'm going to do, we talk about this a lot, and it's how we met. It's like, you find collaborators, you find people who, are the gatekeepers, or they can get you in the door somewhere, or put you in that closer ring, closer to that tighter, smaller ring around what you think of as like the industry and the inside. And yeah, eventually though, you look back and it's like, well, what's the body of the things that I've made? If your art is to make something, then it's like, well, what have I made? What am I making right now? And is that what I want to be making? Am I happy in this? And yeah, I've definitely gone through, I go through annually at least a time where I'm like, this sucks. Like, why? And it hurts the worst when you see other people make it that you think are not as talented. Because you're like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Like, and you can't help but do that. And it doesn't mean that you're not excited for them and that they didn't earn it. But you can't help but you have nothing. There's no metrics. It's not like if you go to school and you get this certification, then you will get this job. That's not how it is here. Even if you're making incredible stuff, it's like, well, the right person has to see it and people have to care. Is it, it's just, there's so many outside variables. All you can control is the thing that you're making and the people that you're meeting. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I would say regularly, it's almost just like a checkup now. It's like a mental checkup too, because a lot of it is tied into mental health in a way, because it's like, I'll be super depressed and I'm like, I'm out here, like even not to get to like to share too much personal information, but it's like, we've saved up some savings, which I've never had in my life. We have a son. We live in an incredible place. On the outside, looking in, I work from home. My friends are all talented people like you guys. It's like I have the best life ever. So it's like, how could I be depressed, or what's my problem? But the truth is, the thing that gives me happiness. There's two things, two ways to look at it, and I usually tend to only look at one. So I've started to do it. That's why I caught myself. So I was about to say the things that give me happiness are when I accomplish something creative and other people react to it in a positive way. But the truth is, that's one way that's only one area where I find happiness, because I do find happiness in my wife and my relationship with my family, with my son, for sure, a billion times, and so I tend, and I don't know if you feel this way, being that artist, I tend to completely negate everything in my life except for that artistic endeavor that when I was 8, I said I was going to set out to do, that when I was 18, I did set out to do. And when I was, 28, I left all my job to be able to do it. It's like, I don't feel like I've arrived. And I certainly haven't. I'm not a household name, So, and not that that's my goal either. I just want to, now the goals have sort of shifted. So yeah, the family and life, and that I get to drink cocktails and watch the sunset. Like that's it's just I mean, that is really what it's all about, unfortunately. But the artist inside me, I know this is on one of your questions too you sent, is like, that's not enough. I don't know whether I've conditioned myself or whether I've been conditioned by my expectations or the outside. But yeah, I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's like I don't give myself freedom to appreciate the things I have because I don't have that thing I was supposed to do. I know it was a lot.
No, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, you are a household name to your son. I wanted to tell you that much. You
In
are.
this household.
Yeah, you are, baby. You're Papa. That's damn right. That is damn right. You are. And you ain't alone in what you're feeling, man. And I was talking to one of our other homies. I was in Miami not too long ago. And when people ask me, hey, how are you doing? I try not to say, good, how are you? I try to actually answer. And, you know,
not give the stock response.
Yeah. And I was talking to him about how, I've just been in a lull and trying to figure out what the next thing is. And we have this podcast, which brings me so much joy to just stop and talk to people. But I feel like I'm stuck and all this stuff. And he asked me a question. It was Hugh. I was talking to Hugh, Jam. He asked me a question that I wasn't expecting from Hugh. He said, are you putting too much pressure on yourself to find the next thing? And that's not something that I had thought about. Am I putting too much pressure on myself? And I said, yeah, maybe I am. And he said, learn to find a way to fall in love with the wandering. It's okay to wander sometimes. It's not the worst thing in the world. Because if you're constantly having this weight on your shoulders while you're walking, you're going to be walking slower than if you take that weight off and you just embrace the actual wandering of everything, which is something that I've always admired about you, is how you have had the faculty to go in between multiple avenues, such as writing. I was going to talk about your books whenever it came up, the Edgar Trunk books, but that you literally have books that are published, physical books, as well as being a filmmaker and a screenwriter. You have been able to have this facsimile to be able to navigate in between all these different avenues, which is, to me, the true mark of an artist is somebody who is able to adapt and survive, type of thing. So, I mean, kudos to you on that first and foremost. And that was a really good answer, because it just helps me talking to people going through this whole mishigash that is being out here in LA.
I so appreciate that. Thank you. I think for me, there's different types of creatives. I'm actually reading a friend's book right now, who Saul.
Oh, he wrote a book?
He wrote a little book because he's an artist, of course, of all types. But he's an incredible visual artist, and so he has been tapping back into his visual artistry, and he wrote a little book about his journey. But I hadn't finished it, but I'm reading it like a chapter a day. He talks a lot about this was the thing that I wanted to bring up to you, was his acting wasn't satisfying to him, although it was satisfying and he loves it and he loved it and he still does it. But there's something about acting that didn't quite fulfill him the way it did when he would create a story and do visual artwork, whether it was a pen quill or whatever. And he relayed a story about an acting coach of his who said, I'm going to butcher it, but he wasn't saying that as an actor, you're not an artist. As an actor, you're not a creator. As an actor, you are an interpreter.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, it's like you're channeling something through, you're interpreting it, you're bringing a lot to it, of course. But, and creation is certainly involved when you are acting. You need to create the world, the mindset, and all that, the backstory a lot of times. But in terms of comparing apples to apples, it's like, he would draw a picture, it was completely of his creation, and he had a finished product that could almost be archived. And so anyway, for me, I think in terms of final products. So I visualize a book. So I just deconstruct that. I'm like, okay, so how do I make a book? If I don't know how, I just teach myself or learn. I definitely get a bunch of books that I like and go, what do I like about these? How can I apply it? If it's a movie, I'm like, okay, I see a movie. Everything I'm doing now is to realize what that movie is that I see. And sure, it changes and it grows, it evolves. If it's a podcast, I was going to mention that. Have I ever done a podcast before? No. And this is a scripted narrative podcast I'm talking about. I'm like, but I've listened to many and I know what I like and I know what I would do for my own. And so I just think I definitely have limitations. Like, I'm not a painter. I can't do what Saul does. Like
Yet.
Yeah, I mean, I can't be like, I picture this painting of my wife and son, so I'm just going to learn how to make that. That I know what my limitations are. But if I know if I'm not limited, like if I can see a final product and I know like, oh, I can make that, I want to make that, then I figure out I don't let anything get in my way and I end up making that. But with acting, I was curious because you're writing, you're directing, you're producing now, you're making this podcast, like you're doing other things above and beyond the acting. Do you feel a sense of like the acting is interpreting and the other things are like creating? Like, do you feel a difference?
That's a good question, because I was going to tie it into another episode that we had where we were speaking with another actor friend, and he was saying how he envies music producers. Because a music producer, all you need is a studio or you need a laptop or something, and you can just create music, right? You can just, whatever you think, you can start and away you go. Whereas with an actor, you need a script, you need some sort of text, you need a place to put it on, you need an audience. There's a lot more to it than it just being, I'm going to act today in my living room because I want to. You can.
Locked out the afternoon. I'm going to be home acting.
That's what you totally can. That is possible. I think that what Saul was saying and what you brought up is a really good point, because the way that I see it, I do think it's a form of interpretation. It is. And that's why it's always so personal to whoever the actor is. But it can't just be the purest form of creation in the way that a drawing is or painting, because that is, to me, just coming from your mind out. And that's what I find journaling to be. That's why I started journaling in the morning, was because when I read The Artist's Way, and I think we've talked about this before too, but when I read The Artist's Way, she stresses just long form journaling, just 3 pages, doesn't have to be that long. It could literally be anything that you want to write. But it's a way of getting you into your body and making something. You physically make something with your hand, as opposed to somebody giving you something and you're interpreting. So the interpretation becomes that form of creation. However, the inception of it is not sprung from you. So yes, I do agree with what you're saying. And that's kind of why this podcast also started, is because we're not beholden to anyone. We can do whatever we want with it. We can make it an hour, we can make it 10 minutes, we can make it 3 hours, we can talk about this, we can do this, we can add visuals, we can do whatever we want, and it feels very freeing in a way, because we're also not relying, from my end, I'm not relying on somebody to say, hey, you got the job, you have license to go ahead and start to make art, right? And that's something that's really been important throughout this whole process. But GM, do you remember when, I think it was the Odell episode, when he was talking about that? What are your? I'm curious to know what you think of in terms of music being sort of a pure form of creation, because all you really need is that inception of like making a song or an inspiration, right? I think we talked about this with Brandon Rose too, that we talked about where do you get that inspiration to even make a song? That's actually something I've never even asked you. How do you get to even start to produce any sort of music? I'd say when I was younger, I'd find inspiration from being very artsy, just for the sake of it. And then
you drew a great motorcycle when we were in second grade. I can tell you that much. We took an art class in second grade, and I drew a shoe. It's probably the best thing I've ever drawn in my entire life. It was a legit shoe, and he drew a motorcycle. So that's just the background on that. When we were in second grade. All right.
That's how our minds
So-
work. I drew a shoe too, though, but then I drew a motorcycle after that.
Mine was better.
Yeah.
Mine was better. Okay,
Yeah,
continue.
my shoe wasn't that great, but I would say, which I have a question thinking about all this for Jason afterwards, but I think now it's gonna sound very cliche or very dumbed down, but it's just if I find a bass line that's catchy or a percussion loop that I make myself or I find online, because I mentioned in a previous episode that when I first started making music, it was very oversaturated because I didn't have an artist to rap on it or sing on it. It was just me and myself, right? So I would fill in a lot of that frequency range with a lot of melodic sounds. But now that I've figured out the craft and honed in on it, now I'm just trying to simplify it. So now a lot has to do with if I hear a song and I think it's catchy. But I find a lot of inspiration from within. I don't need a lot of external inspiration from like other media sources. But I'd say it's gonna sound weird. I'd say like nature and architecture. Not so much itself, but the setting it's in. So like if I want to hear a song in a certain setting, then I'll create a song for that. So I guess that much. I guess.
Well, I
if that answers
remember
your
you were
question.
saying, yeah, it does. And our other boy Hugh, he's a DJ as well. And Brandon Rose, somebody that we brought up that we grew up with too, is a rapper. It's crazy, bro. We went to this tiny school in Miami Lakes, Hialeah, and 35% of the people that were in our grade have to do with something in the arts. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's insane how many people have come out of there that are involved in the arts. It's weird. I don't know what that has to say. Yeah, but I remember you saying that Brandon and Hugh were going to Paris, so you were thinking about Paris and how the structures were going to influence them because they were going out there. They might record some music. So you said, you know what, I'm going to make some Paris vibes, inspired by how Paris is, and that's how you kind of sent them some tracks or whatever. I remember you said something like that.
I mean, it definitely helped that I had been to Paris before. But I was like, well, I'm not on the trip, but the moment I put myself in that headspace, I was very intentional about it. I was like, what does Brandon Rose want to listen to and find inspiration to write lyrics to?
So you just put a bunch of lighters and people smoking cigarettes? That was the inspiration?
And then we talk like this. What are we going to do today? But no, even there was another trip. They went to Croatia, and I was supposed to go with them, but then I was like, I can't go, but I'll make music for him to record there. But I'm more intentional than ever. Where before I didn't like to be intentional. I just wanted to be a free spirit and just be creative as possible. But now it's that's a phase in your life. I think that at least I had to go through to now hone in on very specific types of music I wanted to make. So, and I create music a lot with our friend Brandon Rose. I mean, we're childhood friends, and he's the one that's believed in me probably the most as a producer for him. So we're very intentional on what kind of music we want to make. Sometimes we'll be a little, loosey-goosey with it, but for the most part, it's like, hey, I want people to listen to this while they're driving down the freeway on the way to the club or something like that. Because obviously a lot of his music's hip-hop driven. So yeah, I would say it's just it's reverse engineering. I don't have the song yet. I don't know how fast or slow it's going to be. I don't know what sounds I'm really going to use, but I know I'm thinking ahead of where do I want people to listen to this and how I want them to feel. So you can definitely do that within just one genre. Like for instance, we're dropping a project soon, and some of this, like not every song could be, a rager. It has to have ebbs and flows. So we're just deciphering through the songs we've already made that are going to make that cut. I would say for the most part.
That makes sense. What question did you have for Jason? Because I have another. I just thought of something else when you were talking about.
So it was about short films. Because
we have a short film that's still under construction.
Yeah, which you guys might
Art
you
and
both
dust.
you both
Yeah,
might have the
yeah.
answer to this question because of this.
Hard dust. Oh my, that's what the name of the short film's going to be, actually. We should change the name of it to Part and Art Dust. Okay, sorry, George. Go ahead, bro.
So it's kind of like a twofold question. Because I'm gonna be honest, I haven't seen a lot of short films. I've seen a good amount of short films that rappers have made or artists have made in general, right? For like an album release, whether that's like Kanye West or things around that realm. The times I've seen some in a cinematic form, I do wonder, like, man, what happens if it was just like 5 minutes longer, or vice versa? What happens if it was like 10 minutes shorter? So how do you know, as an artist, as a director, that it's done or that it needs more? Because is that like a tighter rope to walk compared to a feature film? Because I would assume it is, right?
I mean, in my mind, I think like my philosophy comes from prose, since that's where I started. And I was always drawn to novels, which are long form. And you could kind of look at those as like feature films of prose, or television series or limited series of prose. Whereas like the short story is like the short film. And I never completely enjoyed writing short stories. I wanted to write books, but there's so much you can accomplish with a short story, and obviously the time commitment can be a lot less. Can be, doesn't necessarily have to be. But I think films are the same way. Like, you can't, I think, I'm sure of the short films you've seen, like some of them probably felt like they're trying to make a feature film, but they're doing it in a short film. So it doesn't work. It's too much. It's a different medium. Yes, it's on a screen, and yes, it's actors, and you direct it and you edit it. But yeah, I think there's fundamental differences in the mediums. And so for me, like, I couldn't afford to make a feature film, but I knew I could pull together a short film. And if I didn't have a lot of like time to do lighting and get the best sets and, get the best of the best that would cost a lot of money, then I think like the viewer's tolerance would also be less. So like when I made a short film, or when I do make a short film, generally they tend to be very short and they don't work. You never see one of my short films and go, that should have just been a feature. He tried to do too much. I try to do less when it's a short film. I'm like, all right, we're not going to go on a big journey. I mean, you could have a longer short film. It's like 30, 35 minutes, 40 minutes. You start to get more into feature territory. It starts to become like the novella. Obviously, you can achieve a lot more. But if you're in and out in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops, to me, you just have to be aware of what the genre is, the format is, and like what you can achieve in that time, and not try to achieve everything. But I might have like a stupid idea. Like, well, what if there was a guy who had wooden spoons instead of hands? And like, do I want to see this person 90 minutes about a man who has wooden spoons for hands? Probably not.
Okay.
The joke gets old fast. But I also go, well, I want to do a short film about this guy because it's so weird. But where do I take it? Because I can't just have someone come out with spoon hands. Hey, I got spoon hands. And it's like, that 5 minutes will feel very long.
Yeah.
Because you think like, that's the other thing. You think 5 minutes, that's not that long for a movie. But you have like you take like something that's like crazy or weird or absurd. Not that you have to do that to have a good short film. But like, for me, I'll usually think of something zany. I'm like, oh, that would make a good short film. So it's like the spoon hands guy. I'm like, all right, well, once I revealed that he has wooden spoons for hands, and I should probably wait to reveal that, not like opening shot, show that, that it'll be funny. And then maybe I've got a couple gimmicky things I can do, but then we lose interest. We don't care. So I then lean into the human element. I'm like, well, if I'm this guy and I have wooden spoons for hands, maybe it's really hard for me to connect and relate with people who have normal hands. They see spoons when they look at me, if I'm this guy. So let me just make it like a love story. He's in love with this. There's the girl, he's in love with her, but he's convinced. She only sees that he has wooden spoons for hands and is weirded out by him. And so it's like through a series of steps, he's trying to like get her attention. But the truth is, like, it's weird the way he's going about it. Like, even if he had normal hands, it'd be weird. So it's like you find that like more relatable human element, find that story that's like maybe a story we're familiar with, because then we'll know what we're watching, and we have an expectation as a viewer. And when you know what the viewer's expectation is, then you can decide, I'm going to lean into it or I'm going to like flip it upside down. And so those little lessons, like just a couple things that I just described while describing this short film, are things that I've learned through doing the short film. So they definitely serve as like a learning tool for the craft. Because if you only go out and make feature films, that's all you ever make, then you're not actually making much. They take so long to do. You know, like the 5 short films in 6 months, I learned so much doing that. The other thing that happened was the year after that, my wife bought me a camera, and I was never I'm not a DP even still, but I know my way around a camera a little, but like, I'm not trying to shoot my own stuff. But she got me a camera and she said, I'm going to challenge you every week to make your own film, and you are your own crew and you have to do everything. And she did. She gave me a challenge, and we did this for like 10 weeks straight. And it honestly was like some of the best films, because I didn't go to film school. It was like some of the best film school I could have gotten, because I had to figure it out. And it boxed me in to be creative in a short medium, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. That's how long these films were. And again, I wasn't trying to do a feature film in 30 seconds. I was just trying to tell a story that could work in 30 seconds or 60 seconds. So it does beg the question, like, if you're a filmmaker and you only are working in short films, then I don't want to say handed a feature film, because it doesn't happen that way, but like, then you have a chance to do a feature film. Are you, just because if you end up good in the short form medium, are you necessarily good in the long form medium? And I don't think so. I think there are different ways of telling a story, and there are different methods. And in terms of like the technical side, how you light it, how you shoot it, you know, how you dress it, all that, like, yeah, those are skills. They're colors in the palette. But in terms of like telling a story from that standpoint, yeah, it's so. I don't even know if I answered your question, but
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm thankful for the short films, and I'm thankful for the short stories that I've written. But the work that's the most gratifying to me and that I pursue, that I am obsessed with, tends to be the longer narrative stuff. Because I want to live with a character, I want to show all their problems and their dirty laundry, and then I want to see them like make attempts to fix it. And in my case, because I'm an optimist, like I want them to fix it. But how do you make it really hard? That's the challenge. Mm-hmm. You want them to succeed, but it's like, no, I need to mess them up. Like this can't be easy. They've got to have those struggles and setbacks.
You know, that's something about. Did you watch Succession?
Yeah.
So obviously they're all vile human beings. I would not. I would not categorize them as good human beings. However, I will say,
They're found kind of the problem.
I know. I found myself rooting for them occasionally, and I'd say, "You got it. You can fix it," and they never did. They, not to ruin the show for anybody, but
don't just be a billionaire from the buyout. Screw everybody over, and I guess make more billions.
Oh man, that was such a great show. That's Did you watch it all? Did you watch all the way to the end?
Yeah.
Uy.
Yeah.
Uy. That was tremendo show, bro. I want to also plug a short film that you did that's standing out in my mind right now. Was it Those Who Wait? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. That one was one of the... So I've seen a number of short films.
Kind of hit or miss, that one.
Yeah, but for the reason why I'm going to say it's because it doesn't utilize that much dialogue in it, and it's still compelling, and the story moves forward, right? Honestly, that is one of the better short films that I've seen, as well as I remember I saw this short film I think it was for Campus Movie Fest when I was in college, and it had won an award for the Campus Movie Fest in North Carolina or something. Well, first off, they were shooting in North Carolina, which was gorgeous, a backdrop of the screen and everything.
Actually green.
Yes, actually green. Not
LA brown green.
Exactly.
Dry green.
Yeah. No. We'll fix it in post.
Oh, this looks like a lush forest. No worries. We'll fix it in post. It'll look great. Do you have an extra $25,000, by the way, to fix it in post? No. Okay, so anyways, I saw this movie that had no dialogue. It was about this person who was out in the wilderness, and they were trying to find refuge before night fell. And you had this ominous feeling that something was going to happen when night fell. And eventually, at the very end of the short film, and I think it was 7 minutes maybe, I just remember that it got really dark and she was trying to light a lighter, and eventually she lights a lighter, and right behind her is a face, and that's how it ends. But it was all about her trying to survive. But the story was told so clearly in that. And that's what Those Who Wait felt like for me. That story was told, it was very compelling to watch with the lack of dialogue in it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm proud of that film. I like that film. I feel like
too, man. That was awesome.
It's misunderstood by some people in my circle. Some people, it's just like, when I say hit or miss, like, there's people who they love it and they call it art, and there's others who are like, it's not your best, so
that's fair. It is what it is.
Totally fair.
Everybody has taste. Everybody has their own taste. That's the other thing. We're talking. We brought on another director a few weeks ago, and we were talking with him about that, about taste in general, and how people like what they like and don't like what they don't like. And it's one of those things. That's kind of the reason why I love movies and why I am a consistent fan of those types of things. Just because if you make something, thumbs up. And if you make something that's good, double thumbs up, right? It's so hard to even make anything from beginning to end, period. And people are going to say what they're going to say, but at the end of the day, they're wasting their energy telling you, hey, that wasn't that good. Come on. That they're literally giving you energy, meaning that they saw it. You're like, thank you for telling me that, and thank you for watching. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. And you also have the Jason O. Silva artist vision is a very specific vision. You have one of the most unique ways of telling a story that I've come across in recent times, I must say. That is for darn tootin'.
Well, I appreciate that. I feel like it's just like earlier when I was talking about finding your point of view, not just imitating. You have to imitate in the beginning. I mean, George, you were saying like now it's like you simplify, you look inside for inspiration because you learn the craft. Like, you know what you know, and you know how to create from the ground up. You're not just like, oh, I like that sound, I want to do something that's in that sound. Now you know enough to make your own sound that has your signature. And I used to like shy away from the idea of like, you would watch something that I made and go, and you could tell that I made it. It was like this curve, like this. So like at the beginning, I really liked the idea that you would watch something that I made, you could tell that I made it because I'm like, that's my stamp. But then I started to think, well, a real filmmaker would disappear into the narrative and wouldn't, almost like a voiceover of a character you don't see. It's like, I don't want to be the voiceover of a character you don't meet. Just like be in the story. So that was kind of where I spent like a good chunk. And then I kind of came out of all that going, no, there's got to be a reason why if I make it, I'm the one who made it, or I'm the one who had to make it. Because if someone else could just make it, like if you took a bunch of like really great crafts people who are just really great at their craft, like at the craft, let's say, and they could all make the exact same movie the exact same way, well, how are you deciding among them who makes that particular project? And it's not on style or ability. It's just, I don't know how you choose. So I'm like, well, what is it about me? Because I'm sure as an actor, as a musician, it's like you think that too. Like, well, what am I offering that's unique to me that gets people to listen, watch, pick me? Mm-hmm. And so, now I'm like, how do I have a style or a signature that isn't in the way, that doesn't Wes Anderson you?
That's what I was about to bring up. The
Wes Anderson fatigue.
The Wes Anderson.
Just tired of it. It's like, I like it.
I was about to bring that up, and because I saw a picture also on the deep dive of the IG, and your caption was, "South Carolina is so Wes Anderson."
Oh yeah, that was a while. Yeah, that was where I was in the curve there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how would you characterize your Jason O. Silva stamp, if you could?
I think like the things. Honestly, I feel like it's easier for others to describe, and I'm always eager and interested to hear how other people describe it. But for me, it's very human. I love to lean into the human. Like, I'm not about the artificial. I don't like the. Sorry, it sounded very cliche. I'm not about the artificial, but no, I mean, I appreciate.
I'm all about the real, bro. I'm a real bro.
As we're,
I feel like I should have done a saucy snap, double snap. Yeah, I just, I feel like there are so many layers around like who we are, and who we are is we're all broken. We all have, we all want, we all need, and we just aren't practiced in sharing that. I think we're realizing we need to, so it's starting to leak through more. But everything's about like, look how perfect this is. Look at this perfect cup of coffee. Look, I'm on this podcast now. It's like you only highlight the things that you think other people will think is like, it's like are gonna think like high of. It's like, oh, he's the glamorous. You want to glamorize everything, and you also don't want to be like, this was a really hard morning for me. I couldn't get out of bed. Not that that's me or my story, but like also like we don't want to hear that. But there's something somewhere in the middle that's like, it's just human and it's real. And so I like characters who they're totally broken and they can't hide it. And like I was saying earlier, like as an optimist though, like I think there is an answer, and the whether it comes from the world around them, it comes within them, or a combination of both, like they'll get there. And I think like, I don't know if I try to get really technical with it. So everything comes from a human element. I like to get through the bullshit to like the broken part. But yeah, I mean, I think I do like things composed, not in the Wes Anderson way, but like I play with symmetry in a shot, and there is intentionality. George, you mentioned intention earlier. It's like everything is intentional. It's like it's all about what choices say what, convey what, take you on what journey. And so that's definitely what I obsess over. But I do have, like, in terms of my personality, like I have a dark sense of humor, so I try to let that come out, but not in an alienating way. And I definitely like. Usually my stories are dark, but we're laughing, but the characters aren't laughing. But we're not laughing at them either.
I was going to bring that up. I was going to bring that up.
Sounds cool. I like that.
One of the ways that I would characterize your style is when we were shooting that short, you would tell me to do something so weird, right? Like stick your head over the toaster or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
And I just know you're watching by the monitor or whatever. You're watching up the side, and I just hear the Jason chuckle, which in my mind I could see.
I know.
Laughing, kind of like that. He's like the only one cracking up is Jason because it's his taste. That's why.
But it's also so human.
Yeah,
that it's absurd, but it's like no, but it's real. Like
it's like that show where the friends are telling each other in the earpiece what to do, like while they're like trying to keep the prank going live. I forgot what's that show again.
Punked?
No. It's
it's
like
Impractical Jokers.
Impractical Jokers.
Oh yeah,
I love that show.
I love that.
I love that show
because each guy that like gives the other guy the task is making his own.
Exactly. It 100 kept that network. It kept that network thriving. True TV would not be True TV without.
It would never be true.
Or without Impractical. It would never be true without Impractical Jokers. I remember they used to have South Beach Toe on that, and I remember when I was in Miami, when I was still living in Miami, I was just starting out. I thought everything was real, and I had an audition for South Beach Tow. So it was where they tow your car, and I was supposed to be this rich, uppity kid who's getting his car towed. So when I went into the audition, it was all improv, and they said, just go crazy. And I said, can I curse? They said, absolutely. And I said, that's the wrong thing to tell me. So I just lit them up, just telling them everything that you can possibly imagine horrible. And of course, I threw in there, do you know who my dad is? Do you know who my dad is? I didn't get it, but it was fun. That was a fun audition.
Well, I will say, like, when I was watching you when we were filming, and I'd ask you to do something absurd, I laughed because you did it, and it was absurd, but it felt true to the character and it felt real. And that's why, and then that's where the laughter came from. So that came from the work that you did and from your performance, because it wasn't the material on its own. Like if someone else came in, they did that same thing, and I gave the same direction and everything else was the same, I might not laugh at all. In fact, if I'm not laughing, especially if it's dark and I'm behind the monitor, if I'm not laughing, something's wrong usually. Unless it's like seriously straight up just like a hard, tough like scene that you're filming, you know, or that we're doing, then I'll probably feel like the emotion of that ideally. But yeah, if it's something else, then yeah, if I'm not laughing, it's usually a bad sign. But yeah, you did it so believably that I related to it.
Thanks, man. That honestly means a lot. And you were talking a little bit about how it's important to kind of show the vacillation between good days and bad days type of thing earlier. And that just really resonated with me, because I do believe that everything you see is the Instagram version of people's lives type of thing. Nowadays, at least. And when you connect with people, that's why when people say, hey, how are you doing? I try not to give the stock. Yeah. The lock, stock, and loaded answer, which is good. How are you? And Sky and I always try to go back and speak with the on-camera auditioning class at UCF, and I put it in quotes because it's nothing of how it actually is. So anyways, I love UCF, great foundation, just not that class doesn't really, it just teaches you how to stand in front of a camera. Anyways, good people, good intentions. But anyways, we go back and we talk to the kids, and a lot of times the kids they think it's going to be a manual on a how to sort of be an actor type of thing. And in a lot of ways it is, but I think one of the most important things to share also is how I had a Netflix movie. It was on top 10 for damn near a month globally. I haven't worked in 2 years. That is something that I think is very important to share, because it's one of those things that shows you're going to have a human life. A lot of times, I think this is something else that I've realized, particularly with actors, is that it almost seems like a non-human existence, if that makes sense. It almost seems as though people forget to live an actual life in outside of that, because you're chasing this thing, this intangible thing, this interpretation, what we were talking about earlier, that it becomes an interpretation of your life rather than actual life. I don't know if that makes sense or not. But
it's like the human life, it's like there's the art, you think there's an artist's life and then there's a human life, but the human life is just actually your life.
Yeah.
And so if you think you're also living this or should be living this artist's life, then automatically you're going to be looking at your human life, which is your actual life, as, well, that's not my life. My life is this.
Yes.
Not this.
Exactly.
And that the more you can embrace, this is your life. You're living it right now. You know, it's like the more you can find happiness and how to be grounded and how to be rewarded in that, and not saying like, well, I can't be rewarded in my art, so I'm going to find other ways to be rewarded. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you are rewarded every day in ways that you probably aren't even thinking about and appreciating. And you need to be more balanced because of like what you said. It's like you have a big successful win, and then the come down from that, especially if it's not being followed up. Because even if, okay, let's say you got your own series. Oh, and that was amazing. And then let's say you got something else. There's always going to be a time where you have that 2 years or whatever length of time it is where you don't have something, because you're never going to be just straight, solid back to back. I mean, maybe very, very few people are. But even, I mean, how often do you go, well, where's Russell Crowe? What's he been doing? Is he still alive? You know, like everybody experiences those moments, especially in this industry, because it's not a 9 to 5. But man, yeah, I mean, you do definitely start to think about like, what happens if I don't get there? That place that you are pursuing, where you want to be.
Oh yeah.
Like, how will you be devastated? it's like, yeah, what happens if I get there? Will I be like, what now? Also, what happens if I don't get there? Does that mean your life means less or your art means less?
Yeah, it's true.
In a certain mood, you'd probably say yes.
That's a damn good question. That is the expectation of what you're going after versus what the emotion is in the moment and when you get there. That's what I was going to say. Then you get to a certain point, right? Because in my mind, I had all these goals and all these things I wanted to do, and I got some of them. But then after they were done, the emotion of it is that strange wave, you know, where you come down and kind of have to recalibrate myself, as we were talking about earlier. It's weird. You're right. It's not a 9 to 5. It's weird. And that kind of leads me into another question that I wanted to ask, which was, what happened to your art when you became a papa, when you had your beautiful baby boy? I love I love the exhale. I love that it started.
I know, because I'm like, I certainly was concerned, for my artist self was concerned that I wouldn't have the time. But then I remembered I've always made the time because I have to. It's not a question for me. So regardless, I would make the time. And then once I was presented with the opportunity, once he was born, and yeah, it was hard, you know, lifestyle you got to definitely make changes. But also, like, the thing that I never thought about, even if it was told to me, and even if this is common knowledge, it never occurred to me that even though I'd be making, let's call them sacrifices, I'd be making compromises, I'm getting something in return. You know, I'm having hard times, but no one talks about like what you're going to get in return, or maybe they do, but it's just hard to connect with it until you've been through it. But you know, when like, think about Sky, you know, think about, you know, George, or, you know, love of your life, or who, you know, anytime you've had that person, like that in love phase, it feels so good. You know, it's like, you don't look at anybody else, all you could think about. And it's like, when you have a kid, that's how much they love you, and you're in love with them. So it's like, you get to be in love again, and it continues to build from there, but you're getting so much in return. Now for me, I made the time. So I was still writing scripts. COVID happened, so it was a little bit different, I think, than normal times. Of course it was different from normal times, but regarding like being a new parent, I don't know what it would have been like if we weren't in a pandemic, in terms of like how I would have handled being creative. But my situation was, everyone was work from home. A lot of people were unemployed. I realized I was doing a lot of jobs that I wasn't crazy about, or that weren't fully me. And now I didn't have to do those. I only had to focus on what I wanted to focus on, what was actually important to me. And I realized those projects that are really important to me, there's only one or two at a time. And like the book. So you mentioned the book. I hadn't written a book in 10 years. And Annette, my wife, was the one who suggested that I write it. It was like the third book in a series. I'd written the first two a long time ago. And I told her, because we'd never been together when I've written a book. I'm like, it's a different process. Like, it's intense. The way I write, it's 3 to 4 hours every single day. And I do it by word count. I do it like the Stephen King way. Like, I have to hit a word goal, or I don't stop. I can't be like, I sat down for 2 hours, I didn't write anything, but I sat down for 2 hours. That's not a measurement of progress to me. In the brainstorming phase, there's phases where yes, it is. But when like I sit down, I've got my outline, I'm writing, like I have to hit the word goal. It doesn't mean it's final, I can't revise it, but it's like, no, I got to keep that motion, that momentum. I got to keep that forward motion. And even with a kid, you know, even with other commitments, like I was able to make the time. Now I had support in place. Obviously, you know, Annette covered for me a lot greatly, but you know, it was 2 months of me writing 3-4 hours at night. And so I found the time. And the real takeaway, like I think this is a different answer than what you were expecting when you asked the question, but as a father now, thinking about my creative future, finding like, I I am at home. I get to my son's at daycare during the day, but like every morning and every night we spend time together as a family. Every weekend we spend time together as a family. And yeah, sometimes it's fucking boring. You know, he's 2.5 years old. Like he's starting to string a sentence together, kind of. He's mostly about his own needs. And so am I. I'm like, no, there can't be two of us who are mostly about our own needs. Like, you know, what's this all about? But, you know, I'm just starting to think like, who do I want to be? Who do I want him to see when he looks up to me as he grows? And also, like, I think about, well, maybe I've got like 10 more years to get even more successful so that, you know, I'm like the successful dad. You know, I definitely am putting even more pressure on myself in that area, but I'm also just going, you know what? I'm always growing as a storyteller, and that's the thing I can control and put time into and expect a result. How many projects get sold? How much money do I make? You know, who do I get to work with? I can't control those things. I can make efforts to secure what I'd like, but I just have flipped it around because I had a dark phase where I'm like, my annual dark phase, maybe sometimes semi-annual, where I'm just like, why am I doing this? You know, like, what am I going to write one more project that doesn't sell or that no one reads? For what? Like, is that the best use of my time? And sometimes you need to take a break, and it can't be about that every day. But yeah, I have those dark moments, and then I go, no, actually, I'm really excited about this idea, and I got to just do the work, and then I get into it, and then I move on. I'm out of that little slump, and I'm always looking back, glad that I made the things that I made. So they all represent something different. But yeah, I mean, so the book, and then the podcast has been really amazing. Not the podcast like what you guys are doing. You know, I partnered with Drew on an indie feature, and we've been trying to package that up more than it is. But we kind of took a step back to create, especially coming out of the pandemic, I really was interested in taking some TV series concepts that I'd written, that I'd optioned, you know, had made money on, but they never went, so to speak. And well, there's no so to speak about it. They never went. Even though I would like I was making money through option fees on them. So finally I'm like, I'm going to take some of those concepts and I'm going to adapt them into the podcast format and try that as development. So I had one project that's being shopped now that's on that level you think of where it's like, well, the agency is represented and there's a production company and there's a TV showrunner and there's talent. Like the Hollywood package, like that's being shopped around. But I'm also skeptical of that because I'm less involved. It's more like, yeah, we'll update you when there's updates. So with Drew, I'm like, no, let's make one. I'm like, I've already developed one, written one, and it's ready to go, but let's actually make one. Enough pitching. I didn't move to this town to pitch. I moved to this town to make. And of course, you got to do both. But Drew has been an amazing partner, and you know we don't share the same strengths, so we complement each other really well. So I'm like, hey, this is what could really help move this along is if we knew somebody who had X, Y, and Z. And he's like, he runs off and he goes and he finds them. So it's been really beneficial. But he's a great, you know, he's an awesome writer and he's a great actor, and so he is a great storyteller. And we definitely complement each other there. But going into this podcast, we ended up writing a full season, 6 episodes, which again, a lot of people who are writers in this industry have probably written a number of pilots for their concepts that they're pitching. But how many have written an episode 2, an episode 3, an episode 4? And this is the second time that I've done that. And I have to say, it's so different. It's like people who spend a lot of times, like when you write a movie, let's just say, like you spend more time in Act 1 than any other act in your script because you get Act 1 done and you're excited and you're sharing it and you're rereading it and you're reworking it. And with this, I'm comparing it to TV because the way we've designed it, it's very similar. The narrative style is very similar to TV. It's 6 episodes of 30 minutes each. And every episode you have to deliver a beginning, middle, and end, but you also have to set up the next episode. And then over the course of the season, you have to have a beginning, middle, and end. So we completely wrote all that, developed it all, did all that. We cast our project. We found partners to be able to, studio recording partners to be able to record with an audio engineer. We found a sound designer and sound mixer partner. And so we're now like in the middle of episode 3 in terms of getting it fully delivered and mixed. There's only 3 more to go. They're like staggered. So yeah, anyway, my point is it's been a very different process and I've loved it so we're done with principal recording. So basically over 2 months, we had 26 actors voicing 52 roles come into the studio one at a time. It's me as the director because Drew and I created it together and we co-wrote it. He stars in it and I directed it. And so it's Drew's my producing partner in the studio with me, our sound engineer, and then our recording booth with 1 actor. Only once we had 2 actors at a time together to work off each other. But generally, everyone was start to finish the entire series, only doing their lines. And I'm not an actor, but I'm voicing through the talkback mic, like the line to set them up to be able to feed off of in terms of tonality or energy or whatever. And keeping it all straight in my mind with the direction that I want everybody to go and at what point throughout the season. And so, 2 to 4 hours at a time, recording with 1 talent, 1 audio engineer, and your producing partner. It was amazing. No last looks, no blocking, no lighting, no wardrobe, it's no swapping lenses and picking angles. It was just
No losing light.
none of that. It was just basically me and an actor, like Isaac, a lot of the stuff that we had done, like preparing over Zoom for our project, like just us, intimate, focused on one thing and not long, crazy hours. I loved it.
I recently did a scripted podcast as well, actually, at Wolf at the Door Studios. And they worked with Duke Winston and Lance Reddick, actually. R.I.P. Great man.
Yeah.
And they did a Batman. It's called Batman.
Lance is in the podcast.
Yeah. Amazing voice. That dude has one of the best voices. It was called Batman Unburied. And anyways, I found this submission. I submitted for it, and it was a scripted podcast, which I had never really listened to before. And then I ended up getting cast, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. It was the same thing that you were talking about. They would have multiple people come in, and we would try to record with as many people as possible. But sometimes it was just me and the director, and they had the sound engineer there, and he would come over the talkback mic, and he would read the lines. And it was just and it blew my mind the way that they captured and were able to set the environment by only using sound. That's what blew my mind. It's like a radio play. So we're going back to the days of radio plays, except that they're scripted podcasts now. Same thing with this. This is radio. It's just internet radio. I
think like there's still some undiscovered territory in the scripted podcast space, which I was really excited to dig into with this. And I edited the podcast as well. So I'm doing a lot of the design and also like when Drew and I wrote this, we really challenged ourselves to tell a story that was going to work optimally in an audio only environment. And it was really hard sometimes to go, wait, there's no visuals. So we can't describe that or have that moment happen that way. And we didn't want a narrator. We didn't want a character speaking to us directly. So it's fully dramatized. Like you follow one character. It's about this guy who is a workaholic, and his company finally like forces him to take a vacation, and they pay for it too. And so he ends up, we open and he's on the dock about to board a cruise from Miami to Bermuda. And he's like calling HR saying, do I have to do this? And they're like, well, you're already there. Like, just take the cruise. Like, what's the problem? So anyway, that's the type of guy he is, though. So like, he ends up on this cruise. He's got all these wacky dinner mates that he's assigned to sit with. He's alone, and to add insult to injury, he realizes once they've set sail that it's not a normal cruise. It's a motivational cruise. And it's all based around the teachings of this guy named Ernie Macked Up Bigman, who is voiced by Lance Reddick. And so basically this first season is like this guy's existential journey, and a bunch of shit comes out, but it's just wild and weird, and there's some surreal stuff happening. It gets a little sci-fi, but I really like, and with Drew's encouragement as my producing partner, I was kind of trying some things musically and trying some things as sound design, a little bit more experimental, not just straight up, one-to-one, like just direct translation, journalistic approach to the material. Like, I wanted to do things that could work in a sound only environment that wouldn't work if you had the visual, and that was also a little bit more unusual. And he loved it, and Annette loved it. So yeah, the first episode, which we have totally finished, like, it delves into it, but then it gets even zanier as we go. And it's been so fun. I'm so excited about it. And I haven't heard any other and I've listened to a lot of scripted podcasts, and more so now that we've been doing this, but like, not many people are doing what we did with this. And so I'm excited. I think it's going to feel fresh to people who like podcasts. And I think for those who are new to it or going to check it out for the first time, like, they're going to be turned on to listening to more like scripted podcasts now because of it.
I'm going to send you some of that Wolf at the Door stuff, because
please do. Yeah.
I think you would be super interested. They have this one called Modes of Thought, and it's essentially, I'm going to butcher what it's about, but it's essentially takes place in a college classroom, and it's Modes of Thought on Antaran literature, and it's a made-up history of a made-up civilization that predates Egypt and all these things, but it's all about this college course, and a bunch of crazy shit happens during the course of the class and the lessons and things like that. But one of the things that blew my mind was the way that they were able to create distance. That was what blew my mind, right? Because we've all been in those big auditoriums that they teach college classes at, and you know how it sounds when you're all the way in the back row, and you know how it sounds right when you're in the front row. So when I heard this thing, I immediately was transported to these classrooms, and I just thought, wow, I can see how big this room is just from the way that they recorded, which is really, really wild. I think it's a fascinating subspace of just podcasts in general, and I think that you're right, it's going to take off. Have you heard the one with Julianne Moore and Oscar Isaac? There's one called Agent, oh man, what is it called? I don't remember, but I'll find it also. It's really good.
Any that you like, send them my way.
It's really good. I listened to it while I was working out. I was like, I would go to the gym and I would listen to scripted podcasts. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was
good for runs. Like, I'll do it on a run sometimes.
Are you still running?
Yeah, I've been like sick. Those first 4 months of Sage's daycare, like, I was getting sick a lot, so it was hard to build it back up.
He was bringing home everything from the daycare.
Yes. But I've had a good stretch, so like, I'm fine. Like, I did a 60-minute run yesterday.
Wow.
Wasn't at the speed that I was doing like before, but still, I'm like, 60 minutes I feel really good about at any pace. So yeah, I got my little, like, my little gel packs to like re-energize halfway through on longer runs. So I'm like, I can't let those just sit there collecting dust. Like, I got to do the run where I have to bring the gel. And I'm excited about it.
What is a gel pack?
It's a
like electrolytes, right?
It's just like a little energy. It's like a little gel, like maybe like a tablespoon or two. Where like you're running.
People take them during like marathons.
Yeah, because you need to like re-energize. I made the mistake. My wife made these little tiny balls of like peanut butter with nuts and stuff and chia seeds and froze them. And my little gel packs hadn't come in yet. So I'm like, I'll take one of those like little frozen like peanut butter things and keep it in my pocket. And like, food wise, it was totally right. But 30 minutes into my run, I took a bite. It's like, it's peanut butter, right? So your mouth's like, and you're breathing heavily.
You can't breathe.
I just had to stop and walk. I'm like breathing through this peanut butter.
You're like a dog eating peanut butter. Oh.
Yeah, I know.
That's so funny.
I'm like, this is why you need the gels, because it's like they go down easy. Oh man,
dude, Sky and I. That reminds me, we went to Norway and Iceland for our honeymoon, and we did a 15-mile overnight hike in Norway.
Jeez.
Where it was unbelievable. I had to actually, how do I say this nicely, defecate on the side of a mountain, and I've never done that before. And those mountains where we are, I was so nervous, bro, because those mountains where we are had no trees because we were so high up. There was no trees, so everyone could see you. So it was one of those. That's a whole nother story that we don't have to get into for the millions of listeners. So, anyways, the reason why I'm bringing this up that reminded me of the gel packs was because while we were hiking there, the guides, we did a guided tour. We hiked literally on the side of a cliff. It was unbelievable. It's called Trolltunga. For anybody that's listening, Trolltunga Adventures in Norway. They would tell us, you have to eat more than you think. You have to eat more than you think because you are expending so much energy. And we had to literally snowshoe. We had to put on snowshoes, and this was in the summer. So that's how high up we were. We literally snowshoed to get to where we were going.
You walked into new ecosystems.
Yeah, dude. Wow. It was wild. And they said, if you can't see the footprints in front of you, tell us, because we're going to stop and you need to eat. The snow blindness and also the fatigue, because you're literally just going. You kind of get into this same thing with runner's high. You know, when you get to that runner's high and you're just in that mode where you're just kind of, you're not even thinking about it. You're just running. That's how it was. We were walking.
It's automatic.
All you were thinking was 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other for hours, for 7.5 hours. And then you would look down, and at certain points, and we were all walking in the same line, but I remember looking down and thinking, I can't see a footprint in front of me, which was a crazy thought to have. And that's when I'd say, oh, I need a break. And,
it's happening.
It's happening. I need a break. I'm blind.
Stop.
Yeah, please, stop. And they'd scream at me in Norwegian. No, slurp it up. And I was like, oh, God. No, I'm sorry.
I wonder what you actually just said.
Thank you. Have a nice day. No, tusen takk. Tusen takk. That's all I remember. One of the most amazing places I've ever been in my life. Norway, if you have a chance to go, it is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Unbelievable. Super gorgeous there. Everybody was so nice. Food was amazing. Just an unbelievable experience, that Norway.
Jason, I do want to round about to this kind of ties into the project that you guys are still under construction, but we already went over the topic of what's too much or too little for a film. But once you finish a film, and I know at least from the musical world, everybody struggles with this at one point or another in their creative journey in life. How do you get over the feeling of feeling so vulnerable you don't even want to drop it, or not drop it, present it to the world? You get what I'm saying? Like, there's so many songs I have on my computer.
Oh yeah.
And there's a part of me that's just like, whether it's just imposter syndrome, or it's just you see other people create things in the world and you just feel like it's not up to par, or just that once you put it there, there's no getting the toothpaste back in the tube. You know what I'm saying? So
did you ever that late?
Did you ever struggle with that? And then how'd you get over that hump? Or is it still a daily like struggle or seasonal struggle? And how do you work with, how do you psych your mind up to getting over it?
I mean, look, there's like two levels to it. One is like, ideally you grow as you progress through the projects that you do. And if you're growing as you progress, which is your goal, it's really exciting where you'll end up, a year from now, 10 years from now, 20 years, whatever. So, the journey's there and it'll be fulfilling. But then the flip side of that is, theoretically, every project before that you've done, like working backward, is worse than that's like the cynical way to look at it. But it's like, you know, my last project is a little bit better than the project before that, and the project before that is worse than the project. You know, it's like you're never going to feel like your best work, because then you're always on to something new, right? So you're like, oh, but I'm on this thing now, which is even better than this thing that it's about to release, or the people are about to see. So it's like, I struggled with that for a while, like especially with the short films. They'll be like, oh, it looks so cheap, but it's like, it was cheap. You didn't spend any money, but it was creative and people liked it, like this. And like, you want to get away too from like disclaimer culture, where it's like you can't share your work without a big laundry list of disclaimers. I try never to do that now. I don't want to be like, well, you know, I only had $200. You know, they shoot this on iPhone, and we only had one day, and you know, the sound person like called out sick. You know, you can't. No, like you just own it. You made it. Put it out there. So like, I think through practice, it was like, nah, you made it. Put it out there. If people like it, awesome. If people don't, screw them. Like, everyone's a critic, but you are like, you're vulnerable. You're putting your work out there that came from that like innermost part of you to be judged. Essentially, is how you look at it. You can't help but not. And it's tough. But I think like you just tell yourself, I'm going to keep getting better, and I'm making stuff and putting it out there. And you know what? As much content as you'll see out there, most people aren't making and putting stuff out there.
Yeah.
Not in the way like, they might be posting a lot on, you know, Instagram or making TikTok videos, but like, if you're not making TikTok videos, why are you comparing yourself to TikTok videos? It's like, like for me, it's like with film, it's like, well, I'm putting out short films, and not that there's a shortage of short films, but like for every short film I put out, I know there's like 20 people I've talked to in the last month who were like, yeah, I want to do a short film. Well, and not only did I want to, but I did. And I'm doing another one, and I'm doing another one, and I'm doing more. So you kind of
I was going to say that helps a lot, because there's plenty of times where I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm going to release this, or I don't know if I should finish this song. And then you talk to someone that puts it in perspective, and for lack of better words, or whether if it's someone that's trying to do what you're doing, or someone that doesn't do what you do at all, and they're like, wow, man, you're really getting the ball rolling on your, you know, your passion. It's definitely like a very recalibrating, or like a very freeing reaction you get to it, because it's do you guys both feel, I mean, I feel it all the time, and I didn't realize I was feeling it until maybe the past couple years, but you're so in your creative world that's all you kind of know. So like, you never get an outside looking in until you speak to other people that are actually outside looking in. You know what I'm saying? Like, that helps me a lot. At least it helps me especially a lot. Tremendously.
I mean, what do you
got to get
Jason,
those reactions.
Yeah,
like,
go ahead, Jason, because I for sure have felt that.
Yeah, I think you just, you can't get outside yourself. And also, like, there's feedback that's just someone's reaction, and it might not have anything to do with the quality of your work either. So there's like general feedback, but then there's like specific feedback that hopefully you ask for. Like, you know, like let's say, you know, if I do a horror film and I show it to someone who doesn't like horror movies, you know, that might be an interesting reaction. They might like it, they might not like it. But if I really want to know like how well I did, what worked, what didn't, like I should show that horror film to someone who likes horror films. Like, and I should ask them, I should say like, hey, I really want to know, like, was this scary? Was this weird? Was this predictable? Like, I've learned that with feedback, you have to be you have to ask for what you need to hear, because it's not like they're your boss and they're giving you notes that you have to apply. You're like, okay, no, I'm looking to triangulate how successful I was with this in my craft. So I need to give it to the right people and ask the right questions. And based on what they say, I need to absorb all that and grow from it. But you know, it's like, I'm sure it's no different with music. If you ask someone for their notes, they'll have them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has opinions, you know, so it's like, they're going to give them to you, and you could take the most perfect song, the most perfect movie, the most perfect acting performance, and give them to somebody to say, I want your notes on this. And they're going to have fucking notes, you know? So it's like, you have to remind yourself that everyone has opinions, and some people, a lot of people, their opinions aren't what they think of your work and what you were trying to do. It's run through the guise of, what would I do if I did your song? What would I do if I made your movie? It's like, you didn't make my movie.
Right.
So I don't care what you would do with my if you made my movie. You didn't. I did. Was it effective, and how? You know.
How do you guys, both of you, this is a question for both of you. How do you discern what the proper progressive criticism is versus those general reflections that people are giving you when they're saying, hey, if I would have done it, this is how I would have done it, type of thing? How do you guys basically sift through the criticism that's not going to help you versus the ones that are going to help you? How are you able to tell the difference, or how have you observed in your life how you guys have handled that, both of you?
I mean, I think that's an art form in and of itself.
Yeah.
It's how to interpret, decipher, solicit opinions, notes, how to cut through, like, what's going to help you. Because I think there's a tendency, especially earlier on, to think that you need to take everyone's notes and grow from it, that their notes are right. And we're all human, and it's all subjective. So I think that's why, like, just leaning back on what I was saying a moment ago, I think you have to be specific and intentional when you get feedback that is feedback you expect to apply or grow from. Otherwise, you know, you're getting reactions. That's fine. People are going to say what they think, and you're not necessarily saying, oh, wait, they gave me some feedback, so I need to really, like, adopt that and make changes. Because look, you could, just because you revise something doesn't mean you're revising better. You can definitely go the other direction. So, and I'm sure, like, with music, it's the same thing. Like, it's at a certain point, you have to just trust your own voice, and you have to, like, push all the clutter out. But I mean, that's what I do. I just try to do my best and have the people that I know get me and care to protect my creative soul, where they'll be gentle, but they'll also, like, tell me, like, no, that actually sucked. You know, that's not up to your level of what you normally do. And then you go, yeah, you probably suspected it if someone does tell you that, but, like, you need that. You definitely need your, like, inner circle that they get you, and they're coming from a place of, like, championing your vision to then give you that type of feedback. But yeah, I mean, who knows? You're gonna get notes from everywhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, George, musically, like, what do you deal with?
I think it's a very don't take it personal. I think that's the number one thing, because and I think you have to really be conscious of, it's a case by case. Like, if I ask Hugh, who's a DJ now, about something musical, I'm definitely gonna get a different response, and then I'm gonna react to it a different way compared to when I ask my sister, who doesn't make music or is not really artsy in that sense. I've learned that asking about endeavors within making music, not making music within itself. For instance, when I first started DJing and I'm doing gigs that are not really making money at all or barely any money, so I bring that example of, if I talk to someone like Hugh about it, they're like, man, you know, that's a great stepping stone, keep it going. Whereas my sister's like, why did you do that for free? Because she doesn't get it, you know. She's like, you're giving your time and effort, and then they don't realize it's a stepping stone, you know. So I apply that to the music itself when I ask certain people, or some people give me their feedback on something I created. There's just some people that don't get it, and that's okay. And then there's some people that kind of get it, and then that's okay as well. And you can take pieces from that. And I don't know, that's a really tough question though, Isaac, because I've definitely come to a place where now, because I grew up, I was very impressionable, right? I came from a very sheltered upbringing, all of us did, and at the same time very impressionable, always looking for other people's opinions. But then I realized a lot of the answers are from within, so you kind of have to follow that North Star in your creative space. It's tough, man. It's tough to really it's tough. It's a lot. It's very, like I said, it's case by case for me, at least.
I will say, like, I do like, even if I might reject a note when it's told to me, like, my gut might be like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
You know, or I'm like, no, you just didn't get it.
Yeah.
You know, I might make excuses for the notes, but like, I do in my own time later, I reflect back and I take everything that's ever thrown my way and I really think about it and go, is there and maybe like the note at face value wasn't the note, but there's like a note underneath of that note that you can unpack and you can go, oh, actually, they had this like their note gives me insight into their reaction, and that reaction is really valuable because if I'm intentional in what I do, I want a certain reaction. And so what I might think is, well, what I was doing with this made them feel this way, and if that wasn't my intention, what was it about what I did created that? So
there's been a word that has come up repeatedly throughout this hour and 50 minutes so far, which has been intentionality. We've been talking about intentionality a lot, and just hearing thank you guys both for answering that. It's another reason why I love this, because I learn so much from humans. I just feel so blessed to sincerely talk to people and just hear how they deal with life in general, because it teaches me so much. And then I start to think, while you guys are talking, I don't know if you've seen my reaction, but I've been like, you know, that's like my reaction, because I'll be thinking in my head, I'm like, yeah, that's very good. That's so true. But I was thinking, how do I deal with the criticism that helps and the criticism that doesn't? Because everybody's a critic, especially in today's day and age where you put something out and people can just comment on anything that they want to comment on and things like that. For me, it deals with case by case, like you were saying, George, but it's also about the intentionality and the clarity of vision for the thing, right? So, for instance, we've started this podcast. We've gotten a lot of notes on the podcast. We have gotten, I don't know about you, George, but I've gotten a lot of notes on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I've gotten a lot of things.
My sister's just like, George, why are you moving so much, man? I'm like, I can't. I've never done this. I've never sat down for 3 hours just talk to people. I mean, I have, but I'm usually just like scratching my back. Like, sorry.
So. That's so funny, dude. My parents put us up on the big screen, and there was an episode that you were walking everywhere on the big screen, and all Rossi was saying is, look, why is this guy not sitting down? He needs to sit down. Why is it? And Jason has met both of my parents, by the way. So Jason,
they're awesome.
Knows how Rossi is too, but he was saying that I was cracking up, bro.
Very direct.
Oh man, he's the man. He just had his birthday. We just had a birthday party.
Oh, I saw that. I'm so happy for him.
Wild. It was wild. It was a great day. It was great. But going back to what we were talking about, the clarity of vision for me, for instance, with this thing, I've gotten a lot of really great notes, sincerely great notes, because the people that have especially given them to me are the ones that genuinely care about it. They're the ones that sincerely, like you were saying, Jason, the inner circle that really want to protect, cultivate, and honor what you're doing, your artistic self.
They want it to succeed.
Yeah,
exactly.
They want you to succeed.
They sincerely care about it. So at first, when I hear sometimes the notes, I go, "Oh, okay, thank you. That's nice. I appreciate it."
Yeah, me too.
Right? You know, but but then I go back and I go, all right, let me think about what they said. Let me just think for a second. And because the vision for this, even though we kind of started it just to have intentional conversations, I had a very clear vision about what I wanted to do with it. I did not want to set a time limit that guests needed to feel as though they needed to be out in 30 minutes. I wanted the freedom to just literally feel like we're just meeting up and shooting the shit. We're just sitting up, we're sitting down, we're just talking. Who knows where it's going to go? We won't talk about anything you don't want to talk about, but we're also just going to be sincere and genuine, because sincerely, I want to know how you're doing. That vision was very clear to me. So there's been certain times that I've heard things that I think that's not the kind of thing that I want to make, though. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. There is a box for that, and that's not this box. So to me, the criticism that helps, or when I'm able to discern, I should say, which criticism helps and which doesn't, depends on the clarity of vision for me. If I'm not clear on what I'm making, it's hard for me to then understand this is going to help me, this is not going to help me. So then therefore I'm able to kind of not reject, but sort of guard against the influx of thoughts and opinions and all these things that are coming in, because if I'm not clear about it, then I might say, well, that may help me, so let me bring it all in. Versus when I know what I'm trying to do and I see it come in, I go, well, that's not exactly what I'm trying to do. So the first half of that criticism is out, but then the second half actually does help me, type of thing, if that makes sense or not. It is an art, like you were saying. It's an art in dealing with that and just understanding what's going to help and what's not going to help. I mean, I saw you deal with that as well when we were doing our short film, which honestly, dude, I was thinking about a couple of weeks ago, just because I want to just start making sketches and stuff on my own again. I've gotten to a point where I just want to start shooting my own stuff again. But
Yeah,
I was thinking
I'm
about
even
that.
like, is there, if I'm just fully objective and detach myself from the project and look at everything we made, is there like a piece, a complete piece in what we already did? Because obviously we filmed like one of like 3 parts of what we wanted to do, but like,
it was wild too. That what we did to our apartment was wild.
oh my God. No, it's awesome. I mean, yeah, but I'm like, in terms of like coming out of it, having a thing.
Yeah.
Not just saying, here's a rough cut of these scenes.
I think there's something in there for sure. There is, if there's sort of a broad overview of how I could describe it, it's a day in the life of this guy at this time in this setting. There is a definite sort of beginning, middle, and ... There's not really an end to it.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what going back to the short films, I think for me, when a short film achieves its fullest impact as an audience member is when I'm left with that ... However, the ... has to have a semi-conclusion. So it's not like in Star Wars where you read a whole intro where they literally explain everything that's happening. This is the beginning of the story. But the beautiful thing about Star Wars is that when you jump into it, you're jumping into the middle of a story right away, right? The first Star Wars happens with Leia and R2-D2, right? And you're just in it. Bang! It's not even it's kind of not even a setup. You're just in it.
And
And
fall into a highway system.
right. So that's the thing with the short film, is how do you achieve the beginning, middle, and end? And for me, if I'm left wanting a little more, although I do know how it ends, I kind of like those types of short films, like the one that I was talking about where the creature's behind the girl. I see, oh, she's scared because night's coming. Why is she scared? Oh, she didn't make it out. She has a light, boom, creature. What is going to happen after that?
Well, it was like a new reveal that, it recontextualizes everything you've just watched. So it is like a stopping point. But yeah, the story's not over, but most stories aren't over when they're over,
Ever.
You know that more will happen with these characters, but yeah, you do hope to feel that like a statement, especially with the short, like it made a statement or it wrapped something up or it played with your expectations. Not that it just stopped. Like, did this not export all the way out?
Yeah.
Did this just is there 2 minutes that got lopped off this? They didn't realize it? It can't be like that. But yeah, there's and I think the form, you can, I think you do want to, like, even if there's no middle, like you still want a beginning and an end. Like you want to end up somewhere different than where you started. And I think there's it'd definitely be worth taking a look at with that in mind.
Let's I mean, we can offline this, but because I have to go and get that the storage that you've had.
I know. It's like
3 years
sitting there by my desk,
gathering dust. Pardon our dust. Again, I think that's a hilarious. That is a hilarious. What's it called?
Title?
When you make fun of something.
Parody.
Parody. That's a hilarious parody of this thing. It's called Pardon Our Dust. I have a completely just separate off topic as we kind of So I think we're at 2 hours. I think it's good to kind of just sort of bring this thing to a head.
Yeah.
But before we ask our final 2 questions, I had a question for both of you, which was, what's really inspiring you guys, making you guys curious today? What's jazzing you guys up? What's adding a little butter to your toast? What's giving you guys that thing, that flame? Just in general, like what are some things in art, in life that's kind of making you guys riled up to kind of be alive?
I'll say like, this is what, there's many things, but like something for me, I've been an avid moviegoer my whole life. And I would go to the movies like easily by myself. I don't have any issues with that. I would go sometimes like 2-3 times a week. I'm not saying every week, but like I love the movies that much. I have no problem doing that if I have the time to do it. And having a son, planning date nights has been hard because you need a babysitter. He's got to be asleep, and you only have, you're going to wake up early, so you've got a much narrower window. And like we would plan a movie date night, but we'd go out and sit in a movie in a dark theater, not talk and engage with each other. So we're like, well, why? We're not going to spend our time to get out to not, engage with each other, like, interface. So enjoy each other. So there's been like this dark spell of not seeing a lot of movies. And this last weekend, we just decided, let's just take Sage. We might only last to the first preview and have to leave, and they probably won't give us our money back, but let's try it. And so we went to the theaters. AMC had because they have the big screens, and they have a lot of seats, we could hide away and tuck into the back. It won't be a big deal. And while he didn't make it the entire time.
Hi, Annette.
She can't hear you, but I'll relay that.
Okay.
He made it for an hour. And then he's like, iPad. We went to see Super Mario Brothers in the middle of a movie, gigantic screen. He's never experienced a screen that large in his life with sound like that in his life. He goes, he wants his iPad. Because, he gets bored. But honestly, the fact that he lasted that long is a huge tribute to the film. But it started this new chapter where, okay, I'm going to be able to get back to the movies again. But now I'm going to we'll be able to share the experience as a family. That's really exciting.
That's awesome, dude. Did you guys last the entire movie, or you left after that?
No, we left.
Oh, did you?
I have no idea how it ends.
I haven't seen it, but I heard it was awesome. I really want to see that.
It's doing well.
I really want to see it. George Michael liked it a lot.
I loved it.
It was really good. What we watched was great. So I'll just have to catch it later. At the end of it later. It's weird. It's I'm not someone who walks out of movies. So it's all right, we're leaving. We're packing up our snacks, the stroller. We're leaving the movie theater.
Yeah.
We're 40 minutes into this movie, 60 minutes into sitting down. But it was great. It was a major accomplishment.
Grateful you are that you even made it that far now versus 10 years ago. You would never, right? How life changes. The phases of life is wild. GM, what are you getting jazzed, riled, flamed up about these days?
Not to sound repetitive, but I think it's just being intentional. I for so long I was just so locked in on just the art of creating, just for the sake of creating, and now I'm just okay, I've done that enough. So now I need to really just hone in the craft of presentation. I think that's what's really jazzing me up now, is figuring out myself in creating a part of my mind, a headspace to what's gonna happen now after the product is done. Is it just gonna sit on my hard drive, or is it I'm just gonna admire it from time to time, or am I gonna present it to the world? And then the answer is you gotta present it to the world, because at that point, if you don't, it's just you enjoying it, and that's it. I would say that's what's jazzing me up. And then finding new music for DJing, that's really jazzing me up a lot, because now it's been ramping up. Now I'm DJing more events, so that the search for new music and really deciphering what I like, but what other people like as well. So I would say that's what really jazzing me up is the growing pains of just getting over the being artsy, and now just being someone that can execute presenting the art to the world.
All right, Isaac, how about you?
That was deep. I was thinking, something that I've really been just thinking about a lot is just community in general, and I think that's something. I just like when she walks by. And she looks at the
watching
camera.
down a reel on her computer.
Yeah, I know.
Phone, so
I know she's like working right now. She's working, but I just like how she looks at the computer and then she just keeps on walking off. I think the idea of community, sincerely, and that whole thing of just kind of falling in love with the wandering. I'm at a point in my life right now where I'm not quite sure. Again, it's the semi-annual or that annual thing that you were talking about earlier, Jason. I feel that every year as well. I go through it at least once a year, if not twice a year, where it's the evaluation of what's happening. And I think sincerely just finding what I've realized is that I've missed a sense of community in my life that I haven't really made an effort for. Just generally speaking, specifically speaking, because I felt so full with Sky, and I still feel incredibly full with her, but I've realized that neglecting that part of me has also led to a sort of deficit in certain ways, right? When I was back in Miami, I'd go play basketball with my boys. It would just be the sense of community, not even for the sake of making something. That's something that I had a hard time dealing with out here, specifically because there's so much people making things, and it's such an amazing part of this world. However, I like to just chill. You know what I mean? And it may not just be chilling, just sitting down, not doing anything. I like to genuinely spend time with people, and it doesn't have to be surrounding something creative, because then it becomes work to me oftentimes. So that's something that's really making me curious and jazzed up, is just wanted to hang out with people again, just for the sake of hanging out. I don't wish this writer strike to last a very long time, but one benefit that I have found is that things like this have happened, and I'm able to spend time with people because there's not really much work going on right now. And it's, it is what it is, and it's not something that I'm happy about, but a blessing that I found from it is being able to just connect with folks, man. Yeah, I think that's jazzing me up. And also the feeling of being lost, because I'm definitely in a lull right now, a little stagnant point, has kind of made me jazzed up also. Kind of feeling okay with trying stuff without having any sense of expectation attached to it. And I've been playing Diablo 4 on PlayStation 4.
I'd say that's a big thing for me too, is like removing the expectations in anything in general, not just artistically.
Yeah.
Which Isaac and I have talked about, like other things in my life. So it's just removing expectations, because comparison and expectations is the thief of joy sometimes. Most of the time.
Totally.
Comparison.
And it's tough, man. It's tough because you want to be goal oriented. You want to have ambition. You want to have, a goal set in mind, or just something to go for and you can look back and be proud on. But maybe some things don't have an end product or a goal, that it may be just so you can learn a little bit more about yourself, so then you can apply that to something that has a goal at the end of it. So not everything has to be, Isaac. I think Isaac said it. Sorry, I think Isaac said it. He was like, where a friend said it to me. He's like, just go up to plate and hit some singles and doubles, man, and then that's how you get home runs. You're not gonna get.
Well, Matthew McConaughey talks about that. He's like, sometimes when I was a young actor, I'd get up and I'd want to hit a home run every time, but then I realized you just got to get on base. Yeah. Sometimes you get hit by the ball, sometimes you bunt, sometimes you have 85 different ways of doing it, so you're hitting home runs. But then sometimes you're just trying to prevent from telling a lie.
Yeah,
just get on base, McConaughey. Just get on base,
and I don't lie.
Yeah, I think I learned that. I especially learned that firsthand when you and you would take me golfing early on. What I'm getting at is just make contact with the ball. Like, don't try to hit the ball as hard as you can, and don't look up too early. Like,
yeah, all right, you got there. You know
what I'm saying?
I wasn't sure how you were gonna get there, but you got there. I feel that.
You get what I'm saying? So
yeah,
and it's hard too when you're looking around and you're golfing with other people that are just swinging to the fence, like they're just swinging effortlessly and getting 300 yards on a driver. I think it helped me apply that to life in general. It's just like, just try to make contact. Just try to make contact with the ball.
Toma.
Yep.
Keep your eye on the ball.
Yep.
Let's wrap this thing up, GM. Ask Jason your
closing question.
Your question.
Yeah. So Jason, it's not anything. Don't think too deep. It can be profound, the response you give to this, but I always like to give a synopsis before you answer it. But it's basically fill in the blanks. So you say, my name is blank and I blank. So it can be, I feel tired, hungry, or something profound. So, or I am. So however you feel. It doesn't have to be too deep. It doesn't have to be self-defining, or it can't be. So take it away.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it for me. My name is Jason and I feel.
Hey, whoa.
Damn, that was deep. Oh my God. Bro, it's so funny because inevitably we always tell people, hey man, it does not have to be deep. It does not have to mean anything. You can just have to say whatever you want. People they give an answer that's, I am so and so and I am love. And you're like, holy shit, bro.
Yeah, that one was nuts. We're
going there. That was amazing. Jason,
that helped me a lot right now.
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
You have the floor right now, sir. So what do you want to tell the millions of people? You got your camera right in front of you. Where can they find you? What are you doing? Anything you want to relay right now.
Yeah, I would say if people want, I don't post a lot because my attention is going into projects, but when I do post, generally a place to find out like updates for me with the various things would be Instagram, Jason O. Silva. Also, this is like more advanced, but because the book did come out this year, a few months ago, and there's exciting news coming around that and some other projects. So I do have a newsletter. If you want to check out my book series, now there's an official site, which I never had before. It was always Amazon and bookstore, Barnes and Noble, whatever. I'm not doing that this time around. So anyone who wants to check out like my book series, what it's about, should go to Edgar Trunk, like TRUNK .co. I had .com and I let it go after so many years. And when I tried to buy it back, they tried to like go around the broker who I had hired to secure it for me and like make me pay a lot of money for it. And I was like, screw you, I don't need the .com. So edgartrunk.co.
Nice.
I'm sure there's nothing on .com, but yeah, the book series there. And then, yeah, like definitely be on the lookout for the podcast. It's called Macaw, like the bird. That's the name of the cruise ship that our guest is on. And yeah, man, there's always stuff, but like, I feel like now the intention and the focus are on the few things I can go deep into that I'm really pumped about. So yeah, right now it's the book and the podcast and other things in the works, but there's always like 50 things in the works, 3 things you're working on, and then that one thing that's, out there exposed somehow, some way. But
and we'll put all that info in the description, everybody.
The Tale of Edgar Trunk is what the book series is called, correct?
That's right. Yeah, and there's 3 books out right now out of 5.
Oh.
Wow.
Was that part of the news that there's going to be 5?
Well, that was always the plan. I just sort of abandoned it. But now I'm back. Book 3 is out. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it blows the first 2 books out of the water. But yeah, I'm 12 years older. I'm 12 years more, I say accomplished, but I really just mean like better in storytelling and what I want to say. And so, yeah, book 3 is amazing. And pretty soon I'll start working on book 4. But pretty much like within the next 3 years, the whole series will be released. So it's around the corner.
That's amazing, brother. Sincerely, we can't thank you.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you guys.
For
Thanks
2 hours and 12 minutes of
having me
your
on.
time. You're the man. I'm glad that you're starting to feel better. I love you. I respect you. It's so nice to see your face.
Yeah, bro.
Thank you.
Glad you guys are doing
It's
this.
been a pleasure.
Thank you. GM, I
Nice
love
meeting
you,
you, George.
dog.
Likewise.
My guy. Everybody, thank you for grabbing some cafecito, drinking a little bit of cafeína, listening to us. We love you all. And until next time, boogaloo. Boogaloo.
Peace.
This is the Café con Podcast.